Never think Halloween is just about candy and costumes. What I witnessed that night in the black neighborhood changed everything I thought I knew about fear, racism, and survival. October 31st, 2023, the kind of night where the air feels thick and heavy. Marcus Johnson thought he was just doing his job. He was a paranormal investigator hired to perform what they called an exorcism in the Oakwood neighborhood. But what started as a routine call turned into something nobody could have predicted. This is the story of how one black man faced down both the supernatural and something far more terrifying, human hatred, and somehow walked out victorious. Marcus had been in the paranormal investigation business for 7 years, started his own company called Spiritual Solutions back in 2016. He'd seen a lot of things: houses with unexplained noises, objects moving on their own, cold spots that made no sense. But he'd never dealt with anything like this. The call came in 3 days before Halloween. A woman named Patricia Stevens, white woman, mid-50s. Her voice was shaking on the phone. She lived on Maple Street and Oakwood. Now, Oakwood was historically a black neighborhood, been that way since the 1950s. But over the past decade, gentrification had started creeping in. White families moving into renovated houses, pushing property values up, pushing longtime residents out. Patricia had moved in 6 months ago. Bought one of those old Victorian houses for cheap, needed work, but had good bones, as they say. From day one, weird things started happening. Doors slamming at 3 in the morning, whispers in empty rooms, the smell of smoke when nothing was burning, shadows moving across walls when no one was there. But here's where it gets complicated. Patricia didn't call Marcus first. She called 5 other paranormal investigators. All of them were white. Every single one refused to come to Oakwood. Some made excuses: too busy, booked up, not their area of expertise. But Marcus knew what was really happening. They didn't want to work in a black neighborhood. Simple as that. So Patricia called Marcus. And Marcus, being who he is, said yes, because he believed everyone deserved help. Didn't matter what color they were or where they lived. A haunting is a haunting. Fear is fear. Marcus showed up on Halloween night at 8 p.m. His partner, David Chen, was supposed to come with him, but David's kid got sick last minute. So Marcus was going in alone. He pulled up to the house in his black SUV, equipment in the back, EMF readers, thermal cameras, voice recorders, sage, holy water, all the tools of the trade. The house looked exactly like you'd imagine. 3 stories, peeling paint, windows like dark eyes staring at the street, Halloween decorations on nearby porches, kids in costumes running by, their laughter cut through the autumn air. Patricia met him at the door. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled back in a messy bun. She barely made eye contact when she shook his hand. Marcus noticed, but didn't say anything. He'd dealt with uncomfortable clients before. Some people just weren't used to being around black folks. That was their problem, not his. Inside, the house felt wrong immediately. Marcus had developed a sixth sense for these things over the years. The temperature was fine, nothing visually out of place, but the energy felt heavy, oppressive, like the air itself was watching him. Patricia showed him around, pointed out the hot spots: the master bedroom where doors slammed, the kitchen where whispers happened, the basement where she refused to go anymore. Marcus took notes, asked questions, professional as always. Then she said something that made him pause. "I need to tell you something. The previous owners, they were black, an older couple. They died here, both of them,
within weeks of each other. Natural causes, supposedly, but some of the neighbors, they've said things. Marcus looked at her. What kind of things? Patricia shifted uncomfortably. That the husband was involved in civil rights work back in the 60s. He faced a lot of hatred. That maybe that energy is still here. Marcus started his investigation at 9 p.m., set up his equipment throughout the house. Cameras in the corners, voice recorders in each room, EMF readers on tables. He began in the basement because that's where the strongest activity supposedly happened. The basement was unfinished. Concrete floors, exposed beams, a single bulb hanging from the ceiling. As soon as Marcus descended the stairs, his EMF reader spiked. Strong electromagnetic field. It could be faulty wiring. Could be something else. He turned on his voice recorder. This is Marcus Johnson, October 31st, 2023, 9:15 p.m., beginning investigation in the basement of 42 Maple Street. The air felt colder down here. Marcus could see his breath. He pulled out his thermal camera. Sure enough, cold spots scattered throughout the space. No rational explanation. No windows, no drafts. Then he heard it. A whisper, faint, coming from the corner behind the old furnace. "Can you repeat that?" Marcus said calmly. "I'm here to help. I'm not here to hurt you or disrespect you." Another whisper, clearer this time. It sounded like, "Leave." Marcus didn't leave. He moved closer. "I understand you might want me to leave, but the woman living here now is scared. She needs peace. We all need peace. Can you tell me your name?" Silence for a full minute. Then the EMF reader spiked so hard it maxed out. The temperature dropped another 10 degrees, and a voice came through. Not a whisper this time. A full voice. Deep, male, angry. "They killed us." Marcus felt his heart rate increase, but kept his voice steady. "Who killed you?" "They burned our church. They lynched our brothers. They destroyed our homes. This ground is soaked in blood." Marcus understood then. This wasn't just about one couple who died in this house. This was about generations of pain, trauma embedded in the land itself. The neighborhood had a history most people didn't talk about. In the 1920s, Oakwood had been the site of racial violence. Black families are terrorized, businesses burned, people killed. That history didn't just disappear because new houses got built. "I understand," Marcus said. "I'm black too. I know that pain. My grandfather lived through Jim Crow. My father lived through segregation. I've lived through my own struggles. But holding on to this anger, it's not helping anyone. Not you, not the people living here now." Another voice joined in. Female this time. Softer, but equally pained. "They took everything from us. And now they're taking our homes again. White people. Moving in, pushing us out. Even in death, we're not allowed to rest." Marcus sat down on the concrete floor. This was beyond a standard exorcism. This was about healing wounds that went back a century. "I hear you. I see you. Your pain is valid. What happened to you was evil, unforgivable. But Patricia is upstairs. She's just one person. She didn't do those things. And holding on to this anger, it's eating you up. It's keeping you trapped." "Why should we trust you?" the male voice demanded. "Because I'm not here to push you out. I'm here to help you find peace. Real peace. Not this. This isn't rest. This is torment. You're hurting, and that hurt is spilling over onto the living." For the next 2 hours, Marcus stayed in that basement. talking, listening. The voices told him stories about a church burning in 1922, about a young man named Thomas who was lynched for allegedly looking at a white woman, about families driven out in the middle of the night, about dreams destroyed and lives cut short. Marcus recorded everything, not for evidence, but because these stories deserved to be heard. These voices had been silenced for so long. If nothing else, he could witness their pain, acknowledge it, honor it. But then things took a turn. Around 11:30 p.m., Marcus heard footsteps upstairs. Heavy. Multiple people. He heard Patricia scream. Marcus grabbed his equipment and ran up the basement stairs. In the living room, he found 4 white men, late 20s, early 30s. They wore street clothes, but Marcus could tell from their posture and the way they carried themselves, they were looking for trouble. One of them held a baseball bat.
"The hell are you doing in Patricia's house?" the one with the bat demanded. Patricia stood near the front door, visibly shaking. I called him. He's helping me." "You called a black guy to come to your house on Halloween at night?" another one sneered. "What were you thinking?" Marcus raised his hand slowly. "I'm a paranormal investigator. Patricia hired me to deal with the activity in her house. I'm just doing my job." The man with the bat stepped closer. "Yeah, right. Paranormal investigator. What kind of scam is that? You're probably here to rob her." And there it was. The real exorcism Marcus needed to perform. Not against ghosts. Against racism. Against the assumption that a black man in this neighborhood must be up to no good. Against the idea that he couldn't possibly be a legitimate professional. Marcus kept his voice calm. "I have identification. I have a business license. I have a contract signed by Patricia. I'm happy to show you all of it." "We don't need to see anything," the third man said. He pulled out his phone. "We're calling the cops. Let them sort it out." Marcus felt his stomach drop. He knew how this could go. Black man, white neighborhood, white woman. Even with all his documentation, even with Patricia vouching for him, this could end badly. He'd heard too many stories, seen too many videos. Black people doing their jobs, living their lives, and ending up dead because someone decided they looked suspicious. But then something happened that nobody expected. The temperature in the room plummeted. Everyone's breath became visible. The lights started flickering. And the voices Marcus had been talking to in the basement, they came upstairs. Objects started moving. Books flew off shelves. Picture frames rattled on the walls. The baseball bat was ripped from the man's hands and thrown across the room. All 4 men stumbled backward, terror replacing their aggression. And then the voices spoke, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Leave him alone." The female voice from the basement, clear as day. "You want to see evil?" The male voice boomed. "Look in a mirror. This man came here with respect, with compassion. He listened to our pain. And you come here with violence, with hatred, just like those who came before you." The walls shook. The floor trembled. The 4 men scrambled toward the door, tripping over themselves to get out. One of them was crying. Another was screaming. They burst through the front door and ran down the street like children fleeing a nightmare. Patricia stood frozen, her eyes wide. Marcus remained still, processing what just happened. The ghosts had protected him. The same spirits who'd been tormenting this house. They'd saved him from a potentially deadly encounter. The activity slowly calmed. The temperature returned to normal. The lights stopped flickering. And Marcus heard the female voice one more time. Gentle now. "Thank you for hearing us, for seeing us as human beings. Not everyone does." Marcus felt tears in his eyes. "Thank you for protecting me. Not everyone does that either." "Go in peace, brother," the male voice said.
We'll rest now. Tell our stories. Don't let them be forgotten. Marcus nodded. I promise. He turned to Patricia, who still looked shock-shelled. Are you okay? She nodded slowly. I'm sorry. About those men. They're neighbors. They thought. They assumed.
I know what they assumed, Marcus said quietly. But that's on them, not you.
Patricia started crying. This house, the things that had been happening, it was never about scaring me, was it? It was about being heard. Sometimes what we call hauntings are just pain that never got a chance to heal, Marcus explained. Your house sits on land where terrible things happened. To black people, by white people. That trauma doesn't just evaporate, it lingers, it festers, and sometimes, if the conditions are right, it manifests. What do I do now? Patricia asked. Marcus thought for a moment. Learn the history. Talk to the longtime residents of this neighborhood, the black families who've been here for generations. Listen to their stories. Honor the people who came before you, and maybe consider being part of the solution instead of part of the problem. Patricia wiped her eyes. I will. I promise I will. Marcus packed up his equipment. As he was leaving, Patricia stopped him. Will it be peaceful now, the house? I think so. They were angry because they were forgotten, erased. But now they've been heard. That matters more than you might think.
Marcus drove home that night, exhausted but somehow lighter. He'd faced two kinds of hauntings, the supernatural kind and the very human kind. The ghosts of racism past and racism present, and he'd survived both. Over the next few weeks, Marcus thought a lot about that night, about how the spirits in that basement had been so angry, so hurt. But when they saw him being threatened by those men, they protected him because they recognized something in him, a shared experience, a shared pain. He also thought about how quickly those four white men assumed the worst about him, how ready they were to use violence, how easily that situation could have gone differently if not for supernatural intervention. How many black people don't get that kind of protection? Marcus wrote up a detailed report of his investigation, but he also wrote something else. An article about the history of Oakwood, about the racial violence that happened there in the 1920s, about the families who were terrorized and driven out, about the lives lost and the dreams destroyed. He published it on his website and shared it on social media. The response was overwhelming. Longtime Oakwood residents reached out to thank him. They'd shared their own family stories. They added details he didn't know. Slowly, a more complete picture emerged, the neighborhood's true history, not the sanitized version, but the real, painful, complicated truth. Patricia reached out to him a month later. She'd formed a group with some of the black residents. They were working on a memorial, something to honor the victims of the 1922 church burning and the subsequent violence. Something to make sure those people were never forgotten again. The activity in her house had completely stopped after that Halloween night. No more whispers, no more slamming doors, no more cold spots. Just peace. Marcus realized something important through all of this. Racism isn't just about the living. It's about how we treat the dead, too. How we remember, or don't remember. How do we honor, or dishonor? The pain of racism doesn't end when someone dies. It echoes through generations, through the very land itself. But there's also something else he learned. Resistance comes in many forms. Sometimes it's protests and speeches and legislation. Sometimes it's just refusing to be silenced, even in death. The spirits in that basement, they'd been fighting for recognition for 100 years. And on that Halloween night, they finally got it.
Marcus continued his work as a paranormal investigator, but he approached it differently now. He started researching the histories of the places he investigated, especially in black neighborhoods, especially in places where violence and trauma had occurred. He found that many hauntings had roots in racial violence, injustice, in pain that never got a chance to heal. He became a voice for those who couldn't speak. He documented stories. He shared histories. He made sure people remembered, because that's what those spirits had asked him to do. Tell our stories. Don't let them be forgotten. And he never forgot that Halloween night, when ghosts protected him from the real monsters, when the supernatural proved to be more just than the natural, when he faced down racism in its many forms and walked away victorious, not because he fought back with violence, but because he listened, because he showed respect, because he recognized the humanity in everyone, living or dead. The four men who'd threatened him never apologized. Marcus didn't expect them to, but he heard through the neighborhood grapevine that they'd been pretty shaken up. One of them supposedly moved out of Oakwood entirely, couldn't handle living in a house where things went bump in the night. Marcus found some dark humor in that. The same spirits that those men probably would have dismissed as superstition if they'd been told about them. Those spirits scared them so badly that they couldn't sleep at night. Sometimes the universe has a sense of justice after all. He also started teaching, giving talks at universities, at paranormal conventions, at community centers, about the intersection of race and the supernatural, about how trauma manifests, about why it's important to listen to stories, all stories, even the ones that make us uncomfortable. Some people thought he was crazy, mixing social justice with ghost hunting. But Marcus didn't care. He'd seen the truth. He'd lived it on that Halloween night in Oakwood, when the veil between worlds was thin, when past and present collided, when racism showed its face in both the living and the dead. And he'd come out the other side stronger, more certain of his purpose. He wasn't just investigating hauntings anymore. He was healing wounds, giving voice to the voiceless, making sure history didn't repeat itself, or at least making sure people knew the history in the first place. Marcus often thought about what that male spirit had said. This ground is soaked in blood. It was true, not just in Oakwood, but in so many places across America. Land stolen, people killed, communities destroyed, and then everyone expected to just move on, build new houses, start fresh, forget. But the dead don't forget, and they won't let us forget either, not if we're willing to listen. That Halloween night taught Marcus that victory doesn't always look like what we expect. He didn't defeat the ghosts. He didn't banish them. He didn't cleanse the house with sage and holy water and call it a day. Instead, he witnessed them. He honored them. He promised to tell their stories. And in return, they gave him something invaluable: protection, recognition, solidarity. Sometimes the most powerful exorcism isn't getting rid of ghosts. It's exorcising the hatred and ignorance that created them in the first place. It's acknowledging pain instead of burying it. It's choosing to remember instead of choosing to forget. Marcus kept his promise. He told their stories, over and over again, to anyone who would listen. And in doing so, he kept them alive, not as angry spirits trapped in a basement, but as human beings who lived and loved and suffered and deserved to be remembered. If stories like this matter to you, hit subscribe, because there's so much more we need to talk about.